Hello people, and welcome back to part 13 of the Noob's Guide to City Skylines. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Thanks so much indeed for all the support during the Skyline construction. You guys really enjoyed it and indeed absolutely smashing this series. And performing much better than I expected, so I'm glad you're all enjoying sort of a nice little tutorial, slow development focused city like this. I'm really enjoying playing it. And of course last week I asked you guys for a city name and we have absolutely had a winner. We are going to go for Noob Yoke. Of course, as a play on words for New York. love Noob Yoke. So thank you so much for the suggestion. And we now have an appropriate name instead of calling it Downtown Noob's Guide all the time. In today's episode, we are going to come back over to this park over here because we have some nice ideas today. And I want to talk about how we can pay a little bit of respect to the natural detailing that comes with the vanilla maps, including this kind of Chaos God star, right? We had a comment that this is kind of basically the sign of the 4 Chaos Gods for any Warhammer fans watching. And you know what we're going to do today is bring in kind of an expanded botanical garden, talk about some detailing tips that we can use with some of the park life pathways, and indeed integrate some unique buildings into this and kind of expand out a natural sort of green space within the downtown and factor in these little ruins into it as well. So we've got some nice ideas in store today as we round out this little peninsula of the downtown district. Let's build an expanded botanical garden, shall we? So first of all, I want to identify an entrance for the expanded botanical garden, and I think I can iron up this place here where we have some road network near the residential, so I'm just going to cut away a little bit of the land. And then let's discuss kind of an entrance road here, okay? Why don't we leave 4 tiles in between, and then see what sort of orientations we're playing with. So I'm going to very much pretend that the botanical garden asset from the vanilla game, this one right here, it's going to serve as something of like a main entrance, alright? So why don't we have that there? That's going to be fine. I can see that it is just kind of off by 1, and am I going to appreciate the centralization here? I think I very much am, so let's amend this network as well. And a good way to check this is just to check your measurement, see you're at 480, and then redraw out by 1 more measurement to 540. And of course, if you're getting some weird node snapping, just upgrade that section. There we go, and then don't forget to hook in your tram line if indeed you are following along to my exact measurements here. Bring that back in there. And then of course upgrade this section as well. Cool, so now we have this out front. Feel free to throw down some of your favourite park life plazas perhaps. You know, whatever detailing sort of palettes you've come to appreciate now, continue to integrate them in various parts of your city. I don't think I'm totally against the inclusion of some nature reserve pathway. Either side to help reinforce the kind of natural and botanical vibes that we're working with today. So I'm going to come back into slope and just push away a little bit of this nastiness that we've got from terraforming. And that's going to be okay for me. Okay, wonderful news. So when we built the Green Cities Bowl, quite a few episodes ago now, I did include the Bird and Bee Haven unique. But in hindsight, this is right next to the highway, and we just kind of placed it to see what it would look like in and around some Green City stuff. But I now want this to be part of my sort of downtown expanded botanical garden. So we're going to bring this over here as well. So we'll stick it there for right now. And then if you do want to come back and replace the asset that you've lost, then just grab a vanilla asset and then stick it in and you'll be fine. Okay. We're not losing too much on this area over here either. So now I want to bring in some pathways, almost as like a little walking route, okay? So for people that want to want to enjoy the botanical garden, they have this little sort of winding road here, and I very much want it to sort of wind around all these ruins, okay? So using our freeform tool with no snapping on, and you can decide the curvatures. Do you want to go quite harsh with it or quite smooth and flowing? All entirely up to you, of course. It's almost like they could take like a walking tour around here, okay? And we will use some of the walking tours as well in today's episode, make it kind of like a dedicated tourist spot. Okay, so there's kind of like my encompassing pathway, and we'll also feed this off into a couple of different places here today as well. And what I do want to do with this area is also make it a park life area, just so we can place park assets away from roads. We don't have to have them here, because we'll certainly get some use out of these today. So I think just because I'm in the downtown, I'm going to go for the park main gate. Okay. This is going to be a nice little bit of decoration for my main road in this part of the downtown as well. And again, the fence can be expanded around it. And I think we will stick with the park fence today. Maybe have some internal nature reserve and farm fencing. But very much for the boundary, we'll use park fence. Okay, so let's get that park life area painted out over the entire area where we want to work with today. And in honour of Papa Nurgle, we are going to call this the Garden of Nurgle, thanks to the Chaos Star. So, really good, really happy with that, right? Always happy to have some Warhammer in this game. And again, I think I'm happy to maybe pop in a couple of little side gates here as well. Almost to function as extra decoration, okay? Not really relying on this area to make vast amounts of money. People will be able to enter via the roads as well, not always through park gates, so not relying on it to be a total park life cheers. And then we'll have that come over there, okay? So I very much like the way we're kind of flowing over the hill. This is going to be a nice time, and that skyline's sitting as a fantastic backdrop now, isn't it? Yes, please. Okay, so we want to place the bird and bee haven within this build, but we're going to have to bring in a dirt road to accommodate it. So again, we want to discuss some form of orientation. Let's bring out an initial frame and then see if we can relocate this to sit somewhere against the pathways. I'm not quite happy with that cut in terrain, so let's bring it over a little bit and then back into our terraforming tools. And a little bit of soften here just to take some of the sting of that sort of cliff face that develops. Slope can help as well. Okay, and just try and make it a little bit more natural. Okay, and again, take a spin around. Even though it's such a small placement, it's important that you keep checking from all your angles to make sure that you're happy with how it sits in the build. Because when you're working with kind of expanded park life areas like this, it can get quite ugly quite quickly if you don't pay it the proper respect. So let's continue to have a look at what else we can include around this area. Let's bring out our sort of dirt road frame here, and all this will be tidied up come the end as well. And thinking about other assets that will work nicely, I'm definitely not opposed to a little tropical garden appearing in here. Yeah, it's going to blend quite nicely with the bird and bee haven, okay? I'm happy with that, and then let's start to provide a little box around these assets now as well. Not totally against the inclusion of a Japanese garden either. Again, all these little kind of pops of pink now. All these assets are going to complement each other, as well as adding to the overall build. So there's something we can do with pathways in order to create some sense of vibe. So within this botanical garden, perhaps the city has collected various species of tree from across the globe and are ready to kind of plant them and showcase them here, or almost maintain them. So let's bring in some pathways, and I want to start to a grid point here with a straight road tour. I'm going to start with some vanilla gravel path. You can also use a vanilla pavement path for this as well, but we are going to upgrade them. So starting from the second tile in, let's come up by 50 units each time. Okay, we're just going to draw these in all at the same length. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. And then what we can do here is actually upgrade into nature reserve fence with decorations or without decorations, if you would prefer to not have the lights. I think I'm maybe feeling a couple more lengths of this pattern. Let's go for a few more here, okay? Then again. And then we can upgrade into nature reserve pathway. The reason why we have to do it as vanilla path first is because the vanilla paths will actually sit right next to each other. If you try to do this with park life path, you have to go 2 tiles apart. So, but once you've got the vanilla pathway in, just upgrade it and you'll be fine. Okay, so at night time, this is gonna be illuminated, okay? And I think I'm okay with that. But what I'm about to do now is, let's remove this section and this one. And then let's pick a tree that isn't perhaps particularly popular within this very tropical environment that Diamond Coast is in. Let's go for some of these pines perhaps, alright? Get a few of these in. It's all very simple little decoration tips like this in cities that make a world of difference to the vanilla game at least. So I think I'm enjoying that. Now this is definitely going to be complemented with some farm fencing from the Industries DLC. And let's bring this up. Again, we'll find a place to bring this down now. Let's come in with some of our vanilla pathway again, and we'll set up a few of these little branches today. So this can be our entrance point, and this one now sort of meander back into this space over here. That's going to be wonderful. Okay, let's continue that fence pattern. Again, might just slightly amend it. Now we know where we're sat. No road guideline, or no road length here. Let's bring this right up to the point. Fantastic. Come around the side. And then back up to the top. And there we go. So, almost like some sort of mini-maintained plantation, right? You know, they're sort of looking after some boreal pines here that have been imported from Palaven. Or indeed Novaria. Okay. We can maybe get some of the California palms in that are coming from Ilos. If we want to start making yet more crossovers, then of course we can. So hopefully you just kind of get the point of a little bit of more creative use of some of the industry fencing with some of the park life and some clever placement of trees. Even though it's a fairly sort of pointless aspect from the gameplay perspective, it very much adds to the detailing of the area. Okay, so this can come down here now and put back into our main path network. And again, I might want to start doing some more of these, so let's do another one together, shall we? Let's come in with a little bit of space here. We will go for road length again as well. And we'll make sure that we keep them all the same distance. That was 50 each time. And you know, if you don't want the lights within the plantations at night, then just feel free to either leave them as the vanilla path, but I would suggest maybe upgrading to just nature reserve without decorations. But I'm very much happy with the lighting here. Almost as like it's there for the gardeners, or the botanical gardeners anyway. Right, let's go for a different tree this time. Okay, we have some eastern cottonwoods are always a nice favourite, although perhaps some coconut trees would also work well as well. So again, let's stagger the pattern so it's not exactly the same on sort of each repetition, okay? We'll get some of these palms in. Of course, you can use Propline Tool for this as well if you are playing with that mod that we've talked about in this series. It does just make sort of this kind of placement a little bit faster. But it's not too much work otherwise. Okay, again, I'm happy with that. And the fence vibes. So we can sort of split the fence if we want. And not have it sort of join up each side, but I think I'm happy to do that. Again, if we're just a little bit too close to breaking some of our path networks, come off of all your snapping, and then you just get a much finer placement. And again, we'll want to make sure that we hook into the main path network, so it sort of makes sense. And also, we've got an opportunity to do so here. That's fine by me. So, you know, if you're looking for a way to fill some spaces a little more creatively, then some simple path upgrading and some clever tree placements can be a very much welcome addition into the city. So we can definitely start bringing some of these vibes in continually during our detail and time-lapse, of course, and if you're feeling it, perhaps some lighter touches of overgrowth. Even letting them overlap the pathways would be acceptable in this scenario, I think. Maybe not on the main pathway, though. You know, sort of all around here, we just want that sort of leafy spillage, if you like, for lack of a better phrase. And there we go. Definitely want to move this, though, because this is very much killing the vibe. Let's move the waste transfer facility over here right now. I'll see you put it there, just so you get power jumping through. We will eventually make some sort of dedicated mass garbage processing area, but not quite yet. Okay, so this is cool. Everyone will eventually sync through with power. I'm going to be happy with that. So now I want to discuss the inclusion of yet again another micro district in the city. So I'm going to paint out a district, and I want some residential over here. So of course we're going to give them the sustainable housing from the Green Cities pack. And then we're going to do some specific high density zoning here. So I'm just going to do these 2 deep 1x2 patterns. And we are looking for repeatable patterns here. It doesn't have to be an exact mimic pattern, but there are some assets that work very nicely within this sort of style, okay? And it's going to also help complement our little botanical build here as well. So just sort of 1x2 spaces. Okay, there's also some different variations of this you can do as well. Okay, we'll see what comes in. So these are really the assets that I want, these ones right here, okay? Very nice, sort of little wood panelled things with roof terraces. Very cute. So if you're a fan of these ones as well, then you can go for them. I don't hate them, I will keep some of them in. Okay, and there you go. There's our first repeatable pattern in. Once it fills in, you go for your next one. Again, if you are on the PC, there is no reason that you shouldn't be playing with Poppable Rico, even if it's just sort of, well, it is basically a vanilla quality of life mod. having total control of which assets come in, it's pretty mega. It's game changing. But for our total vanilla friends, and indeed the console players, this is just a slower way of doing it. You can let these level up if you want, they will of course change their appearance, but it's not really what I want here today. I want the kind of the small ones, and even some of the level 2s and 3 variations of these assets are quite nice, but a little bit too tall for what I want today. Okay, there we go. So just repeat this now, right, in your block, for wherever you want them to start coming in, filling them in, and then don't forget to sort of factor in some nicer residential detailing as well for where we can come with a vanilla gravel path and continue to make our city vastly more walkable. And then whatever sort of repeated pattern you're feeling, maybe get some palms in here. Don't be afraid to get involved with some park life props around the back if you want. Perhaps make a little sort of communal eating area if you like. Okay, but you can see now, right, as this pattern starts to fill, this is why we are specifically zoning. We're not just mass zoning and thinking, right, okay, that's great, my residential demand is now satisfied. It should qualify as illegal gameplay, really. Mass zoning, it's, in my opinion, it really ruins the look of a city when you don't pay attention to what assets are allowed to be part of your skyline, especially in a downtown as well. Okay, so you see this one's leveled up to level 2, so they just get a little bit more important looking. I think I'm happy to have a couple of these in here as well. And yeah, I'm definitely not feeling the little alternate versions. So I will get this pattern in, and we can even just see now, right, how it's going to sit in front of this sort of botanical development. It's going to be a nice addition to the skyline, and also in the grand scheme of things, contribute to the very sort of low, gradual crawling height that we're developing up here now. So even after we built the skyline, we still have to respect its development as to what gets added in and around it. So I'll be back once I've repeated this pattern 1,000 times. So here we go. This is what your final product will look like. Just enormous difference, right? Being a little more careful with your zonings, especially with green cities. You can get some wonderful repeated patterns in here. Even people picking up some of the walking pathways now. So very nice indeed. Happy with that. So let's return to the ruins now. I don't want to do something with an elevated zoo path, of course. So I'm thinking we can almost have like a little sort of elevated pathway that passes over the ruins of Nurgle. And then we can essentially have it as like a little walking tour. So we're going to come up by 2 elevation points, and we can actually just about clear the ruins here. And of course I want to be very respectful to the ruins themselves. So we're going to meander these little pathways through them where we can. So you can imagine, people want to sort of take the elevated walkway over and gaze down onto the ancient ruins. You're not actually allowed to enter them yourself. You do have to take the sort of official pathway, if you like. And then we can bring that down. Just make sure you snap to our angle. And there we go. See, very little small touch of detailing, isn't it? But makes a little bit of difference. Adds a little more purpose to some of this natural detailing that comes with the vanilla maps. So let's come back into our dirt road now. And I want to start looking at the placement of some further assets again. Now, if you are playing with, I believe, the high-tech content creator pack under your park life areas, you will have access to the biodome and the vertical farm. And these are very much assets that I want to bring in to the build. And definitely the biodome is something that wants its own sort of respect and design. Okay, so let's bring this down on an initial holding frame. Let's see where we can possibly squeeze this in. How about here? We're going to be happy with that. Definitely fits into the theme, doesn't it? Yeah, I think it does. But rather than sort of keeping the road so rigidly boxed against it, why don't we see if we can start bringing in some curves to help break away from the grid. So we'll bring out our little park area here, no road length for the time being. Okay, and then let's just start bringing in some nicer curves. Now, it doesn't have to be sort of perfectly curved if you like. You know, you can do different sort of lengths and shapes. Oval is always welcome, right? I don't think anyone's averse to a little bit of oval spice every now and again. Then we can have a little bit something like that. And then again, of course, it will still require a road connection, and that can easily be provided just by drawing that road in again. Of course, lots of little pathways now are going to be more than welcome. If you do want to carry on charging people for the privilege of entering, then of course just include some more of your favourite park gates. Of course, it doesn't have to be the city park. If you want to go to nature reserve here, you absolutely could. And then again, a little bit of pathway connection into the various networks is really going to start bringing home this vibe now, I feel. And don't worry about power synchronization. It will eventually join in with the main grid as a skyscraper burns down in the downtown. That's fine though. Yeah, we are building a botanical garden today. Fires will have to burn of their own accord. So now I think I actually want to replace this pathway with a dirt road. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to replace this entire section here. Okay, that's going to continually link in with my sort of false plantations here, if you like. And then let's see what we can do. So we're going to break this road here. And again, just make sure that we continue to allow the pathways to come through. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Let's do something up here again. But we need to do a little bit of terraforming here just to accommodate the asset. So we'll pick out a layer. Let's go for perhaps this one here. I think I'm happy with that. And then why don't we pay respect to a vertical farm? Again, from the high-tech content creators pack. So we can snap into the road guideline of that main entrance sort of frame, if you like. Bring this up. And let's accommodate the other building in here. Which again is going to be the vertical farm. Now if we can get this to centralize with the botanical garden, that would be appreciated. But it's not massively important to me. Okay. So I realise it's quite garish for the time being. It's going to be a nice little pop of height and quite a obvious focal point for the build. But bear with it, okay? I know some of you are probably almost gurning at the inclusion of the vertical farm here, but we will blend it in, I promise. I realise it's something of a bold move. Okay, and then this can just get a curve tool and connect in, so it will still have garbage collection and whatnot. Again, if we just want to re-amend the frame, again, you can do sort of a circular frame here again if you wanted to, like we did with the biodome, but don't have to. Bring it in like that, and then of course let's not forget to continually feed everyone in to the sort of wider reserve, if you like. Yeah, I think I'm going to be on board with that design and idea today. Further park asset placement, let's not forget our park maintenance buildings. These things are really nice looking, and again, orientation is dramatically important to them as to where they want to sit. So I'm maybe thinking, how about over by the entrance here? How do we feel about this? Okay, so of course it's going to serve as a park maintenance building, which we covered in our park life episode. These are going to come out and boost the park values of all parks in the city, including both park life and vanilla. It's just a wonderful asset, isn't it? Again, it's got this kind of like wooden paneling vibe on it. It's going to sit really nicely next to the tropical garden. And I think I'm on board with that. Let's go for that. Another strong shout for an asset placement here is also the riding stables. And again, it's going to want to be factored into the build, isn't it, to make sure it's appropriately placed. And I think I am very much feeling the frontage of the building facing onto this 6-lane palm road. I'm very happy with that. Again, there's just a touch of terrain jank where we're getting the old nasty vanilla terraforming cutaways, but that's absolutely fine. Let's just amend our path network now to respect this new placement. Again, touches of sloped terrain and a couple of little gentle left clicks are going to help it settle in a little bit easier. And then let's grab that nature reserve path decoration again. No road guideline, or no snapping at all, to be fair. He's going to help us out here. Bring that in. We can also connect this park area in now too. So, it's just a really unique cluster and combination of assets starting to form now. And you can even just see it from down on the road network here. You've got the park maintenance building over there. You can see some of the colourful trees from the gardens. A very obvious modern pop in height with the vertical farm. And then these little sort of older style buildings with the riding stables now. Very nice indeed. Very happy with it. Let's also come back into the world of park life and dive into the zoo stuff now. So we can include zoo assets in here. I believe the birdhouse is going to work really nicely. Again, that's kind of a main road asset here. If not, the terraforming is slightly awkward. So again, with that in mind, let's respect what we want to do here. Let's come back into some level terrain. We'll grab this initial layer and then push this one back. And I think when the terraforming is this obvious against the path network, it's a lot more tolerable. And we will certainly do some things with fencing here today to get this to settle in. And then let's place in this birdhouse again. And again, it's another appropriately themed asset, isn't it? It's going to sit nicely as part of this little mini park nature reserve, whatever you want to call it. And indeed, lots of the other sort of zoo assets will work nicely in this area. Included, but not limited to, the insect and amphibian reptile house, which actually works really nicely as a main building. You could switch this out for the botanical garden if you wanted to, and treat this as sort of your main entrance. Okay, I think it certainly fits the theme, doesn't it? Don't forget to replace your botanical garden if it is indeed something you want in. It probably would pair slightly more sensibly with the biodome over here. Okay, if you wanted to perhaps start comparing and combining two similar themed assets. Again, let's arrange some terraforming so we can place in some further zoo buildings. I'm going to clear myself out a little bit of room. I don't want this area to be totally flat, but I do want to try and respect the natural terrain a little bit. But sometimes you do need to work with it. How about a little monkey palace in here as well, okay? You don't have to pretend it's monkeys, it could almost be some sort of botanical garden within itself. Even though there are monkeys climbing around in it, but you can deal with that, right? You can deal with that. And again, it's just going to be another little asset that's sat within the wider park design now. That's going to help us settle in. And we can definitely have a look at perhaps the inclusion or build of a little visitor centre, perhaps right at the entrance. There's info booths here, perhaps a souvenir shop, a little bit of a cafe. So let's come into our pathways and we're going to grab our nature reserve path again. You can move into some of the more sort of concrete and tarmac paths now if you wanted to. Or you can stick with the dirt with the nature reserve. It's all up to your own preferences. So I'm going to come down on an angular road length here. And I want to have a grid snap on as well. Let's draw in some initial frames here. Sort of encompass this entire district. Onto a road guideline so we can hit the snap point of the pathway. Off angle and road length as well. And then let's bring it down into here. Again, which sort of assets you want to go for is entirely up to you. If you want to use the regular park life stuff, then squeeze it in. But I think the zoo is a little more sort of understated. So I'm definitely happy to include this here. Let's drop in a cafe there. It's a perfect little spot for a souvenir shop. And then definitely a restroom over here as well. And then start detailing up with your favourite part tiles. And if you're playing with the prop line tool, this is a wonderful opportunity to start using this to bring in these sort of tiled spaces. You can get sort of a general rough shape with them. This does sort of pair better with Move It for specific prop detailing like this, but once you've kind of got a base framing, you can then just place in sort of manual individual ones to tidy up any inconsistent edges that you might find yourself generating. Again, lots of little tables around the back are going to be appreciated. Indeed, some micro fencing in here will also go a long way in order just to kind of separate this little area as a visitor centre away from the rest of the reserve. So we can bring that in. That's going to be fantastic. And then don't forget your city park props as well, sort of the little bins here are going to go a long way. Get a couple of these in. And of course lots of our favourite sort of content creator trees. Various different styles. Make it quite varied this time if you want, because we are in sort of an essential tree reserve. I guess you would still call this like a botanical garden, right? Not entirely sure what the terminology would be for a place like this. If anyone's ever been to the Eden Project in Cornwall, you kind of know where I'm coming from with this. And lots of overgrowth around the back. And then indeed we can now start to expand the park fencing over on this side of the build as well, to start encompassing the entire build as a separate build, right? You have to go through one of the gates, or you don't have to. You know, if you want to let people enter from any side, then you can. We can see people coming across the roads now, which is great. Visiting the vertical farm. Very nice indeed. It's going to be a controversial choice, this one, isn't it? I think it is. But we will make it work, of course. It just wants a detail and time-lapse as always. So let's start bringing in some tourism public transport, if you like, okay? And I want to place in the hot air balloon tour building here as well. So again, we're going to bring in a new road frame. Again, just remembering that we can always snap the path back in later. Then let's drop in the hot air balloon ride up here, okay? So we can have hot air balloons leaving from this reserve. We're very happy with that. And we can also now do walking points of interest, which is going to be really fun and kind of show people in and around this reserve. So let's start a new line here. And then we're going to feed them in and around these various places. Let's also create another path connection from this space now, because we know we're going to want them to come down from this direction. And we'll grab our line here, and the walking sims come down. They can stop off by the botanical gardens. And then I do want them to actually maybe head back up over the nature reserve pathway, just so we can see it getting use, right? Add a stop in here. And then we'll stop them one more time by all this stuff, and then complete the line there. So that's just going to now allow people to essentially go on a sightseeing tour around the botanical garden, right? Of course, terraforming, as we've placed in a new large asset, that does want to be somewhat respected. A little bit of slope, just to help blend it back in with the natural terrain. It's going to go a long way. If you are finding maybe, like I have done here, you know, where it won't terraform properly because of the infrastructure around it, I'm definitely not going to relocate the highway road. Then lots of very dense sort of chungus overgrowth in and around these parts can help them blend in a little bit more. Okay, and of course a dense tree layer of your favourite tree palettes here. Palms and live oaks. Get your vanilla palm ponds in here too. Try not to let them bleed over the highway. And lots of little bushes. And you know, whatever palette you've decided for your map, if you're playing in a boreal theme, then go for quite a very thick boreal forest here. Whatever takes your fancy. And you just notice what a difference that makes to the drive-by, doesn't it? Really just take the sting out of the brown, doesn't it? Which I think everyone can appreciate. However, guys, that does feel like a wonderful place for a detailing time-lapse. We're going to carry on bringing in our little sort of mock tree reserves, or whatever you want to call them, in a number of different places, using different trees around, probably a couple over here. Lots more walkability to link through different road networks and trees and repeated bush designs between those pathways, just to help them bring them a little more sort of landscape life, and then indeed bring them around our sort of major little park asset complex here. And also consider the further placement of other park assets, like stuff from the medical tab, and the yoga garden from the Green Cities DLC will work very nicely within this build to sit alongside its very similar looking assets. So some more stuff to be included there as well. Come through and tidy up some of the dead space that was developed between our previous developments, where we have, again, more space for walkability and nice designs as we merge from sort of dense arterial downtown road that now flows into the city centre, and we sort of moving a little sort of lower density out this way. So respect those themes, and then also bring sort of a nice landscaped perimeter fence to complement the new Green Cities development and help blend this side of the road into the ring road, which is now getting used this side, which is great. You know, because we've got stuff over here now, this is going to start getting used, which is really handy. And that people can get in and out of the downtown much quicker, having to force the way all the way back through the city centre. So the benefits of the ring road that we placed a couple of episodes ago are now coming to fruition. And then of course reinstate the natural sort of trees that were around the Chaos Star, so we can sort of bring a little more fun and colour back into the build. But otherwise, let's detail our little sort of expanded botanical complex, and we'll be right back. Okay guys, that is going to do it for today. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, likes, comments and shares below really help my channel grow. And if you'd like to help support me directly, there are links down to Instant Gaming, merchandise and Patreon below. But I hope today's episode has helped you come up with some inspiration as to how we can be a lot more creative with some of the unique buildings, some of the regular park assets, and indeed some interesting fence and pathway designs in order to bring a slightly different vibe into an area. I hope we've managed to pay some respect to the vanilla runes. Definitely don't want to rip something this large out, definitely factor it into the city's lore. And lots of very heavily repeated bush patterns and lots of variations of trees really helps hammer home the point that this is something of an exotic tree botanical garden, whatever sort of phrase or terminology you want to give to a place like this. I hope we have managed to pull off the vibe today. As always, there was a ton of detail you guys wouldn't have seen, so please do hang around for some cinematics. And next week we'll definitely head over to the beach and start discussing how we can do some really nice beach detailing without a beach DLC. But otherwise, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and as always, enjoy the rest of your day.